Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this super easy wave look tumbler. As always, I'll make sure to put everything I used today into the description box below so that you guys can shop those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. We're going to start off with just our basic stainless steel tumbler. I didn't paint it or anything because I'm going to put the epoxy directly onto the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare my surface here just by giving it a little sand. Then to clean off the debris, I'll go ahead and wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol. I'll go ahead and place my wand back inside of my tumbler, and then we're going to go ahead and get our epoxy ready. I have 3 separate little cups here because I'm going to be using 3 different colors, and I'm just going to divvy up my epoxy, and I'm going to put about 15 milliliters into each one of these cups. Now, starting out with my first colorant, I'm going to be using a mica called Indie, and you can find this at socglitters.com if you would like to. I'm just going to add 2 scoops of that right down into my epoxy. I'm going to give that a good stir, and then I'm going to apply my next colorant into the next container. Now I'm going to be applying some epoxy dye. This is translucent blue, and this is from Illuminate. I'll make sure, again, to put it down in the description box for you guys. A little bit of this stuff goes a very long ways. So just a little dab on your stick, give it a good stir, and you have a very beautiful blue. And into my last little bit of epoxy, I'm going to be adding some Indiglow. Of course, this is going to give us that really cool looking glow effect for us. So I'm going to add a few scoops of that right down into my epoxy, and I'm going to give that a good stir as well. Now we're ready to make the cool wave effects. So I'm going to go ahead and take my mica mixture, and I'm going to place all 15 milliliters of that epoxy mixture all over my tumbler. And seeing as I'm using a handle tumbler, making sure that I do a nice smooth coat of that across the handle as well. Once that's applied, I'm going to go ahead and place that onto my turner. Then I'll go ahead and hit it up with my torch a little bit, just making sure I pop any little micro bubbles and kind of get everything kind of flowing already for myself before I apply the rest of the colorants. I'm going to go ahead and take my other blue that we did up here with that epoxy dye, and I'm going to just simply start slinging that onto the tumbler. But as you notice here, I am keeping it all in one direction. I kind of want it all in the same direction. So instead of going diagonal or up and down or anything with it, I'm trying to keep it in a side-to-side motion. Now, epoxy dye is pretty potent. You guys know that, or if you don't know that, then I'm telling you now, it's pretty potent. So you don't want to do too much, just enough. You just want a little bit, because this is just going to give us a little bit more of that kind of wave look once we get everything all blown together. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my glow mixture, and I'm really going to load this up. I mean, I'm pretty much going to almost use all 15 mLs that I have down in my cup there, because I really want to make sure that this glow, that you can really see it after we do the peekaboo portion on it. So you just really want to go ahead and load that up with this glow mixture as well. So I'm just going to do a thin layer this round because I'm going to come through with my heat gun here in a second. You'll see my heat gun. And then I'm going to do another coating of my epoxy colorant over top. So let's go ahead and give it a nice warm up here first to kind of get everything moving around for us. Now, I know you guys like to use your heat guns and stuff, but if you're new to doing these kind of cups, you really just want to be careful if you're using something with such heat as a regular heat gun. This is just a blow dryer. I like a blow dryer because it's not too hot, but it still gives that blowing and a little bit of heat as well. So it's not going to kind of overpower your epoxy, which if you accidentally put too much heat on your epoxy, you could, make it cure a little bit too fast for you, or it could cause fish eyes and stuff like that. So just be careful whenever you're using a heat gun. Just make sure you just get it moving. That's all you got to do, and then take it away from it. Okay, let it sit there and watch it and let's see where it goes from there. Now I'm just going to go ahead and tilt it. Now that I have it all kind of blown around a little bit, you just want to tilt it. I tilt it down, I tilt it up, until I get everything kind of swirled a little bit more. Now, after I let it sit for a little bit just to see where those swirls were going, I decided I wanted to come through and add a little bit more blue. So again, I'm going to streak my blue. As you see, I pick my stick up and I get it to where it's just to the point where it's just a drizzle off the end of my stick. So that way it gives it these real thin lines. And that's all you want to do. And then you just want to sling it back and forth. And I'm trying to make sure I get up underneath the handle as well. It was a little bit difficult to get under there, but I managed. And then after I'm done with this blue, I'm going to go ahead and do the glow one more time. I just really want to make sure that that glow, like I said, is really going to stand out once we put that UV light on. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more stringing of the glow right around the base of the tumbler here. And then after I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and hit it up one last time with my blow dryer, just getting everything kind of shifted just a little bit. And then I'm gonna check it with my UV light to make sure that it's glowing the way that I want it to. So if it's not glowing the way that you want it to when you go to check it before you let it cure, go ahead and add some more. But this looks really good to me. I like how that looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that cure, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. And while that's curing, we'll go ahead and get our decals cut out here. So I'm going to show you guys how I made this wave look like the wave down here. So the one at the top is going to look like the one at the bottom. So I'm just gonna make this wave a little bit bigger so that way you guys can see it a bit better. So the first thing we're gonna do is make sure that our one wave is highlighted there. We're gonna go ahead and duplicate that one wave. So now we have two separate waves just like this. And then the next thing we are going to, that looks kind of cool like that too. I mean, you know, however you guys wanna do it. The next thing we're gonna do is come up to the flip button. We're gonna go ahead and click on that. And we are going to click on flip vertical, which makes it look like this, which could be like, you could do like a Kraken tumbler with that. That's pretty cool. But then I'm going to go ahead and flip it the other way, and that's going to give us that wave look. So two flips, one vertically and one horizontally. And then you just want to make sure that is all nice and straight, and then you're going to highlight everything together, and then you're going to weld your piece together. So you're going to come down to combine and click on weld. Now, before you do your outlining portion of it, you want to make sure that it's to the size that you want it to be, so that way you don't have to fuss around with making sure that everything is the correct size. So go ahead and get it the size that you need it to be to go wrap around your specific tumbler that you're using. For mine, I needed like 11.2, and then I just let it fall wherever it needed to after that. So it was a little over 3 in height. And after you get that all figured out, you're going to go ahead and go up to your offset button, and you're going to give it the offset that you would like. Now this is going to be that line that goes around the peekaboo in the end, because we are doing a peekaboo with this. So go ahead and bring that down to the thickness of that ending stripe that you would like. I did 0.556. 0.056, there we go. You're gonna go ahead and apply the offset. You're gonna highlight both items together. You're gonna go down to slice, and that is going to slice out the inside and leave us with just the outer striping portion for to stripe the wave. There we go. So when I go to cut everything, the outline, I'm just going to cut in a basic blue vinyl. Now, some of you might be wondering, why didn't you just use the inside of that for the peekaboo? I tried, it didn't work out for me. So if you can get it to work out for you, you can do it that way. So the black portion I'm going to use for the peekaboo, and I'm just going to use whatever vinyl I have on hand that I don't really care about. Now the Seize the Day I just did in like a typewriter font. I simply typed that out myself. Super simple. I know you guys got this. And then the little wave portion, I just decided to add that to the bottom of my tumbler. So again, I'll just put that down in the description. I just made sure it came just like that. So you just have to measure it and make sure it's the height and width that you need it to be to fit on the bottom if you decide to do that. So, but the Seize the Day, I'm gonna cut out in a textured gold metallic vinyl. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all these things cut out, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. All right, our tumbler is cured and we're ready to start on our peekaboo. So I have my wave portion all ready to go. I'm just gonna go ahead and get my transfer tape put onto that. And after my transfer tape is applied, I'm gonna go ahead and just trim off a little bit of extra from around our decal here. This is just gonna make it a little bit easier when we go to wrap it around our tumbler, just kind of making some slits here and there if you need to, especially if you're using a curvy tumbler. Make sure you put some slits up in those waves and everything. It'll really help out. Now, not in the vinyl, in the open parts of the wave, okay? All right. So here I am. I'm just going to check my decal before I get it placed on, and there is going to be a little bit of a gap right underneath the handle, which is not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and use some electrical tape, and you can't even tell that there was a little bit of a gap. Now, when I make my way back around to the other side of the handle, I'm going to go ahead and peel back all the way back the paper backing, so that way I can go ahead and trim my decal right around my handle on the opposite side. So doing the same thing, just making two little slits so that way it forms nicely around the top of the handle. Now, after I peel back my transfer tape here, I'm going to go ahead and finish up that gap in the back underneath the handle. So this is me just taking my electrical tape and closing in that gap, and you can't even tell that there was a little bit of a gap there. So now before I start spray painting, I'm going to go ahead and add my decal to the bottom as well. Now, after I get my decal added to the bottom, I'm also going to tape off the handle because I don't want the handle to have any paint on it. I want it to stay that kind of wavy epoxy glow look that we had going here. Our templates are all applied, our handle is masked off, and we are ready to spray paint. The spray paint I'm going to use is called Seaside. I'm just going to give it a nice coating of this all over the tumbler, let that dry. And here it is, all nice and dried and ready to go. So before we peel all of our decals back, I wanted to give it a different kind of look. So we're going to use the tack it method and apply some ultrafine glitters to it to give it kind of a different look. So I have a mop brush here. These are mop brushes are exactly like the dollar store brushes you get. I have been having a hard time finding the dollar store brushes, so I went ahead and just bought myself a nice mop brush from Michael's. So that's what those are called, just in case you guys didn't know. So I have my Aleene's Tack It over and over again. This is the glue that you want to use. The reason why we want to use this glue is because after we apply it, it's going to dry clear and it's going to stay tacky, which is going to give us that surface that we need to be able to apply our fine glitter. So I'm going to go ahead and get a nice coating of this Tack It over and over again, applied right to the surface here. Now you can either set it off to the side and let it dry if you're not in a big hurry, but if you're kind of a little impatient like me and you just want to, you want to see what this is going to look like, I'm going to go ahead and use my blow dryer to speed up the process and get this glue dried. And you'll know it's dried whenever it looks completely clear. Now we're ready to apply our glitter. So I'm going to be using two different types of sparkle dust. I'm going to be using Alfresco and Teal. Teal is like a super holographic, ultrafine glitter there, and Alfresco is a white, but it's kind of translucent, so it's actually going to make it look kind of like a golden pearl look to it. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my lightest glitter first, and I'm just going to follow that pattern right along the top because that's where I want mine. So I'm just going to actually hold my tumbler up and just kind of sprinkle that over top of the area that I would like it. Now, after I get that fully applied in the particular area that you would like, it doesn't look like much now, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and tap off the extra. It doesn't really need too much. And then we're gonna go ahead and start the burnishing process. I just take my finger and I just go around in circles until everything is nice and smoothed out. There we go. You'll know if it's not smoothed out properly because you'll be able to kind of tell that things are still poking up. So see, this is what it looks like once it's burnished down. Look at that pretty pearlescent look that it gives it. But you do have to apply a little bit of pressure to this to make sure that everything is going to stay down nice and flat. So I know there's lots of different techniques out there. People use rubbing alcohol on a paper towel and do it that way and stuff like that. But I just like to do it with my finger. That's always worked for me. So whatever way works for you guys. And then after that's all burnished down, we're going to go ahead and work on the bottom portion. Now taking the teal, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing along the bottom. Making sure that I follow that pattern along the bottom. I'm going to tilt my tumbler in the direction so that way my glitter falls down instead of up onto the other portion that I did. Then I'll take my hand and start the burnishing process, making sure all those glitters are nice and flat. And you'll know with this particular glitter because it'll give it a beautiful holographic shine. And once that's all burnished down, now is the process of removing all the masked areas. And before we add our finishing decals, I'm going to go ahead and give it a coating of epoxy over top of this. Now I did coat it with my clear spray here just to kind of seal down those glitters, making sure the epoxy won't wick away off of what we've just done. I'm going to go ahead and apply about 10-15 milliliters of epoxy over top of this. I'll let that cure and then we're ready to move on to the last step. So I have my finishing outline here. I'm going to go ahead and apply my transfer tape. And again, I'm going to go ahead and trim away anything that might just be a nuisance and kind of in my way. I'm just going to trim that up and trim along any little areas that I need to. Then I'm going to go ahead and come through and trim away these pieces at the end here because I don't need that. And I'm actually going to split it right down the center because this is just going to make it a little bit easier for myself. So starting with my top half here, I'm going to go ahead and lay down my outlines right over top of my waves. And again, don't be afraid to cut your transfer tape so that way you can form these outlines around the waves if you need to. And just like the first time around when I get up to my handle, I'm just going to take my scissors and trim and then lay everything down nice and flat and trim away any excess that I don't need. And once you have your top half all laid down, we're ready to apply the bottom half. So trimming off the rest of that piece that made it one solid form, we're going to go ahead and trim that off, and we're going to do the same thing, applying the bottom half of our wave here. Now, after I got the bottom half of my wave applied, I noticed there's a little bit of a gap, but that's okay because I have my little pieces that we cut off the end there, and I'm going to utilize those to fill in the rest of that gap so that way it gives it one solid outline look. And after that, I'll go ahead and apply my quote to the front. I'll go ahead and make sure that everything is nicely burnished down before I apply my last 2 finishing coats of epoxy, and she is good to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.